If you have dry or damaged hair, split ends, dandruff, frizz, or you just want to grow your hair longer, then you might want to try this recipe. It's a herbal oil blend made out of stinging nettles from the garden. Whenever you're working with stinging nettles, it's a good idea to wear gloves to protect your hands and make sure you don't touch the nettles because they leave a big rash and a welts. Now they're really easy to grow. You might even have them growing wild in your backyard. For us, they're in season at the end of winter all through spring, as well as in the summer. I'm placing the nettles in a bag, and then I can place the bag in the car to dehydrate, and I'll shake it every day to make sure there's enough air circulation and airflow and that they're drying appropriately. It's warm enough here for that, so that's what I'm going to do. You could dry them in a warm room in your house, whatever works for you. Once your stinging nettles are dry, you can use them whole or you can blend them up into a powder. Just make sure you put on your gloves when you're handling them because they haven't been cooked down or anything, so they still have the sting in them even when they're dry. I like to blend them up into a powder so that I can fit more in the jar. And that means it will be a more potent dose. I'll be able to fit a lot more herbs in the jar now. If you're going to be using the herbs whole, probably chop them up a little bit so that you can fit them in the jar properly because they do dry quite big as you saw. You want to fill the jar about halfway up with the herbs. Now because I've blended them up, I have about, I don't know, an eighth of a jar. But that's still more than what we would have had if I had have just chopped them up a little bit. Next we fill up the jar with some oil. You can mix the oils if you want to, or you can just use a single oil. The oil you use will depend on what you're trying to do for your hair. If you have dry or damaged hair, whether it's from using heap sources or you've bleached your hair, then olive oil or almond oil are a good option to add in to treat that. Argan oil prevents splitting, and if you have dandruff, then use coconut oil. And if you're trying to prevent frizz, then go for apricot oil or even almond oil once again. I'm using a combination of castor oil and grapeseed oil because I like to use it for hair growth because I like long hair. The castor oil improves circulation of blood in the scalp, which helps with the hair growth. And the grapeseed oil has a high level of antioxidants which block the actual hormone that causes pattern baldness in both men and women. So that's what I use. When I'm using the powder, my measurements are 1 part powder, 1 part castor oil, and 2 parts of the grapeseed oil. Give that a mix up. Try and get it all mixed up so that there's no powder in the bottom. All I do is let that sit for a week and I shake it every day, and then I put it in the cupboard for another 2 to 3 weeks. When the oil's ready, we strain it into a jar. I'm using an amber jar so that it's protected from sunlight. I'll also be storing it in a dark cupboard so that it doesn't get any direct sunlight. Now obviously I can't strain it straight into this jar, so I'm going to use the funnel with the strainer on top and just strain it out. This is a very fine strainer so that none of those bits of herbs get into the actual mixture. You could use a cotton cloth if you wanted to.
I always label my mixtures, writing what it is, what it's for, and the date that I made it. You could also put your use by date too.
I use the oil of an evening, probably about twice a week. And all you do is add a few drops into your hand, rub it together, rub your hands together so you get a coverage over your hands, so it's even coverage. And then I just sort of rub it into my hair like this, doing the ends first. And then I just place it on the scalp.
You don't need to use too much oil because then you'll have excess oil. You want enough to hydrate and treat the hair and scalp, but not so much that your hair is really greasy and that you're leaving an oil stain on everything, like your furniture or your clothes. It's a good idea to use an old pillowcase if you're worried about leaving an oil stain on your pillow. I massage the oil through all of my hair until there's no oil left on my hands.
This treatment will work overnight and you can rinse your hair out the next morning if you want. If you don't want to rinse it out the next morning, you can leave it in. Depends what you like to do. Now I just store this in my apothecary cupboard, or you can put that in your pantry, somewhere dark so it's not in direct sunlight. And it will last as long as the oils are in date. So if you look at your use by date on the oils that you use, you'll know when the use by date will be on your Nettle hair tonic. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Check out some of my other videos and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.